In this video, I'm going to break down how I start and scale luxury branded dropshipping products in 2026. I'm talking going from a complete beginner to your first sale and eventually to a brand that's making 1K a day. Now, not only have I done this for myself, but I've also coached other people through it, both in my own program and as the head coach in Mark Tilbury's. And what I realized watching all of them is that the ones who end up with a brand doing consistent $1,000 days for years are all running the same 7-step playbook. So today I'm going to break down the whole thing in such a simple way that it is low-key impossible for you to fail. Now, before we go into these 7 steps, you need to understand what actually makes one of these stores money, because there are only 3 things going on underneath all of it. The first is that there's a real problem out there that people are already spending money trying to fix. The second is that you've got a genuinely better version of what they are already buying. And that is what I mean by luxury, because I'm not talking about making it expensive just for the sake of it. I'm talking about the good version of something people are already buying badly, so that the person who bought the cheap one and got let down looks at yours and thinks that's the one that they should have got in the first place. And this works because someone who already got burned by the cheap one isn't comparing prices anymore. They're comparing your product to their disappointment. Now, that's just one of my little tricks to get my average order value to $180. And then the third thing is that your marketing actually gets in front of the person who has that problem. Now, every one of these 7 steps I'm about to walk you through only exists because it makes one of these 3 things happen. So if you ever get lost, you can come back to these 3 and work out where you're at. And the first step is the one that decides whether you're still doing this in 6 months, which is picking your space. Now, this is the step everyone skips because it doesn't feel like it's making you money. And you've heard it hundreds of times. But if you think about it, you're going to be looking at this thing every single day for months before it works. And in fact, most people don't fail at dropshipping. They just get bored and stop right before they could have had an insane breakthrough. I can't count on my fingers how many people I've seen kill a store that was one good ad away from being profitable because they'd stopped caring about the product months earlier. So pick something you've actually got some interest in, because if you've had the problem that your product solved, you already know what the person tried and what annoyed them about it. And that means less research and much better ads than someone starting from zero. And I didn't pick my own product because it was trending. I picked it because I can see myself selling it in 5 years. And the thing I already cared about turned out to be the thing that made my product better than everyone else's. So have a think about a problem that you've had, write it down and move on, because sitting on this for 3 weeks is costing you much more than picking the slightly wrong niche would. Now, step 2 is product research. And this is where most people go wrong before they've even spent a pound. What most people do is they go on AliExpress, they scroll around until they find something that looks cool and try to sell it. And I'd call that a phony product because nothing about it has been validated. You just pick a product you like and hope it works. And then you spend your ad budget finding out whether the guess was right, which is the easiest way I know to lose your money. So what I do instead is, instead of creating demand, I locate it, because the demand is already out there and it's already spending money. And what I'm locating is the people who bought the cheap version of something and got let down by it. So I take a prompt and I put it into AI and I get it to scrape Reddit and Amazon for me. And more specifically, I'm looking for the 1-star reviews, because a 5-star review only tells you a product sold, whereas a 1-star review tells you a product sold and then disappointed somebody. That difference is a huge opportunity because it means the marketing already worked and the money is already moving. And the only thing that failed it was the quality, which is exactly the gap a luxury version walks into. You can read Reddit and Amazon if you want, but AI will give you a starting list much faster. For example, linen bed sheets get recommended by professionals for certain skin types. So people buy them and they arrive 50% polyester, but the Amazon listing said nothing about it having polyester in it. Go into those 1-star reviews on those listings and it's the same complaint written over and over again, just by different people. So there was a dropshipper I came across who was selling 100% linen sheets, aimed straight at the exact person who'd already been let down by the cheap version. The product itself was boring, but he was packaging it as a premium product for a specific audience with a specific problem. And that was the first time I'd seen this strategy properly played out. As soon as I tested this for myself, it worked and it made complete sense, because he was treating it like a brand rather than just a product flip. There's another brand doing the exact same thing right now, and it's a persimmon soap, and it works for the same reason, which is that they found the people who were already unhappy and spoke to them directly. Pure genius. So once you've found your problem, you've more or less found your product. Step 3 is competitor research. And I do all of mine inside the Facebook ads library, which is free and every single dropshipper is already using. Now, what I'm looking for here is both brands and dropshippers. And I want the ones doing well and the ones doing badly, because the bad ones show you what isn't working before you spend your own money discovering it. And the way I tell whether somebody is succeeding is pretty simple. If they've got more than 30 active ads running running for longer than 2 weeks, they're spending real money because nobody keeps 30 ads live for a fortnight out of the goodness of their heart. I'll also drop their site into tools like SimilarWeb, and if the traffic is above 30,000, then that's another sign. And I'd ignore any spy tool that claims to tell you how much a store is making, because it's not accurate. Active ads and how long they've been running are the only two metrics I actually trust. Once I'm there, I don't really care about the website, I want the creative. So I use the sort by option in the Facebook ads library, which is already set to impressions high to low. And then the ads at the top are the ones that are performing best for them. What I'm reading is the angle they're pushing and the person they're talking to. Now here's the part most people miss, and I call it borrowing validation. Because if a competitor is selling a cheap version and selling a lot of it, then his customers are the exact people I want. He's spending his own money proving that the audience buys, and I'm gonna show up in front of them with the version that doesn't fall apart. And this works because you're not testing whether or not people want the product anymore. He already did that for you. You're only testing whether they want the good one. So I'm not doing this to copy him. I'm building myself a list of backup angles to test. I've already got my problem angle from the 1-star reviews, but I want 3 or 4 others alongside it, because sometimes the winner is a very clean, simple concept with no problem in it at all, and you don't know yet which one it will be. And by the way, if you want help actually building a profitable store rather than just watching somebody explain it, then I'll leave a link in the description below where you can learn more about that. All right, step 4 is sourcing the product. And this is where things actually require money. So at this point, I already know the problem, I know the competitors and the product. So I go to AliExpress and type the product name in. And then I filter out everything cheap, which is the opposite of what most people say to do on this site. I'm looking for the highest reviewed products in a premium price range, usually about £20 or up, depending on the product. And I won't touch anything with a cost of goods under £10 or £15, partly because cheap products get you chargebacks and then get your payment processors blocked. And both of these will end your business rather than just slow it down. But mostly because a cheap product makes the whole thesis a lie. You cannot be the good version of something while selling the same $4 item as the person you're trying to be. And you'll never get a repeat customer out of it either. Once I've got a handful of good listings, I send them over to my private agent, and I give my students access to mine as well. Now, a private agent is essentially a middleman in China, so that you're not just buying a product on AliExpress every time an order comes in. Your agent speaks directly to the other factories in China. As soon as you get an order on Shopify, they will come into your store, they will fulfill the order and send the item straight to your customer. Think of it like a 3PL that holds no stock, because they'll only order it when you get the sale. They come back with a final price, and that's the product you start selling. And that gets us into step 5, branding. Now, all this really is making sure the site keeps the promise your product is making, because you've just paid up for the good version. And if somebody lands on a site that looks like every other dropshipping store, they will not believe you. So you're building the website, you're creating a logo, you're picking a good theme, and that's genuinely most of it. I use one theme, it's drag and drop, and all the elements you need for a high conversion rate are already built into it. So it looks clean and branded without you having to do anything clever. You just need your colors, your logo, you drop your products in, and it's done. And honestly, with all the AI tools around in 2026, this part has never been easier than it is right now. If you want me to make a full video on building the store side of this, just comment the word AI, and if the demand is high enough, I'll make it. Now, this works because the site is doing the same job the price is doing, which is telling somebody they're looking at the good version before they've read a word. Now, what you don't do at this stage is brand the product itself. So no custom packaging, no custom product yet, because if you customize anything, you're buying inventory and you still have no idea whether or not this sells. Just get the site live as quickly as you possibly can, and that gets us into step number 6. Creative. And there's one rule here that will save you a lot of time and a lot of panic. Your first round of ads is not there to make you money. It's there to get you data. And if you understand that going in, you're not going to lose your head on day 3 when it hasn't turned a profit. So I start with photo ads, and the reason for that is speed. I can literally make tens of these in an afternoon, and I can't do that with video. And the way I run a test is I'll generate one AI image, and then I'll build a set of ads around that image. Same image on all of them, but every ad carries different messaging because each one is aimed at a different avatar. And I know who those avatars are from the competitor research and from what the 1-star reviews told me about the problem. And the reason I'm doing it this way is that I'm not testing the product at this point. I already know people buy it. I'm testing which version of the problem they actually care about. I'll always put one clean, simple branded photo in that test as well, one that just shows the product nicely and says what it does with no problem angle on it at all. Because sometimes the premium version sells itself just by looking like the premium version. And if you never test it, you never find that out. Then you read the data, and whichever messaging performs is your messaging. Now you go and create video ads, all AI, and you double down hard on the angle that won. Very nice premium shots. all shot in the same look so it hangs together and feels like a brand rather than a random ad that somebody made in an afternoon. And this is exactly why the fewer products you test, the more money you make, because every new product you throw at the wall resets everything you'd learned about marketing the last one. And that gets us into the 7th and last step, which is turning this into an actual business. Now, the first thing you do is literally nothing new. You just let the thing run and you let the money build up, and the only reason you can afford to sit there and wait like that is because the product is already good quality. That's the payoff for everything that you did in step 4. You're not sitting there praying nobody asks for a refund. So you've got months where you can just take the money and build your cash position instead of tying it up into stock. And inside that window, there's one cheap thing worth doing, which is the little discount cards. You put a little card in the box that says, "Thanks for ordering, here's 15% off your next order. Plus, you can get a free complimentary product if you post us on your Instagram page." Those cards cost you pennies, and they're doing 2 jobs at once, because the discount brings the customer back for a second order, and the free product gets you social proof you didn't even have to pay for. Which is why the private agent matters, because they're the ones putting the cards into the box for you. Then the second part is ordering stock and properly branding it. And that's 6 months or more down the line rather than just week 2. By then, you know your numbers. So you order enough stock to cover a couple of months of sales at the rate you're already selling, and then you send that to your agent instead of ordering 1 unit at a time. Now the packaging gets your logo on it rather than a sticker, and you can go back to the factory and change the product itself, because at this point you'll have enough cash in the bank to improve on the product for the customers. And that's the point where you've got something nobody can copy off of AliExpress tomorrow, because it doesn't exist there anymore. It's yours. So we've covered the 7 steps to start and scale a luxury branded product. We don't want that to come at the expense of it actually lasting. Because the problem is, there's a specific mistake that even experienced dropshippers make, where the only thing holding the store together is them waking up every morning and figuring out afresh. And if you're doing it, you probably haven't realized, because it feels like work. So watch this video next, where I break down how to build systems that run the business for you and make it feel as dropshipping did back in 2016.